Hello everyone, welcome back to the e-learning space of MGM Higher Secondary School, Bokaro. This is the first video for Unit 6, Section B of Class 8 English Main Course Book. The title of the lesson is The Power of Determination. It is written by the famous Bert Dubin. Here is a picture of Bert Dubin. He is a very famous motivational speaker. He is an American management consultant and educator. He was born on June 10, 1924. He is a speaking business expert at Speaking Success System and president at Personal Achievement Institute. Dear students, we already know Unit 6 is all about specially abled people or differently abled people. It also talks about the odds that are there in life and how one can overcome it because of determination and willpower. The title of this lesson, The Power of Determination, itself is quite a positive one. Let us see what the story is about. The one-room school was heated by an old-fashioned pot-bellied coal stove. A young boy named Glenn Cunningham had the job of coming to school early each day so that he could use kerosene to start the fire and warm the room before the teacher and his classmates arrived. One cold morning, someone mistakenly filled the kerosene container he used with gasoline, and disaster struck. So why I am reading this for you, you can imagine what the scene is. It's a one-room school. Our school has so many classrooms, but it's a one-room school and it's a very cold country perhaps. That is why it needs to be kept warm all the time. And it is the job of a boy named Glenn Cunningham to go to school a little early and light the stove that has coal in it so that it will keep the room warm. I'm sure most of you have experienced this during winters. We use blowers and heaters and radiators. Sometimes we also use the coal stove to keep our houses warm. Now, the problem was that one fine day when this little boy went to his one-room school to keep the room warm by lighting the coal stove, instead of kerosene, somebody had put gasoline. Now, kerosene and gasoline both are petroleum products, but gasoline is extremely inflammable. Hence, what happened? The entire building caught fire. The entire school was covered in great thick flames. The class and the teacher arrived to find the schoolhouse engulfed in flames. Terrified on realizing that Glenn was inside, they rushed in and managed to drag the unconscious boy out of the flaming room, more dead than alive. He had major burns over the lower half of his body and was taken to a hospital nearby. Now, what happened? As soon as the teachers and the students came, they saw the building on fire and they realized, oh no, Glenn must be inside. So somehow they rushed in and managed to drag the boy out. Why were they dragging the boy? Because he was unconscious. The flame, the thick smoke has driven him unconscious. So he wasn't awake and he could not wake up on purpose because his body was going through a major trauma and he was taken to a nearby hospital. What was the trauma? His entire lower half of the body was badly burnt. It was a major burn trauma. From his bed, the dreadfully burned, semi-conscious Glenn faintly heard the doctor talking to his mother. The doctor told his mother that her son would surely die, which was for the best, really, for the terrible fire had devastated the lower half of his body. So he had a very traumatic experience. His lower half of the body was burnt. He was lying on the hospital bed, but he became semi-conscious. Semi-conscious means when you're not fully aware, you're not even fully unconscious, but some parts, you're registering some parts of the conversation. And he heard that the doctor was telling his mother that it's a very major burn. It's very difficult for him to wake up. So it would be good if he dies, because why is a doctor who was supposed to save life is thinking that it would be better that the little boy dies? Yes, you're right, because his burns are so severe that even if he lives, he would be living the life of a cripple. A cripple is a person who has no function or access to function of his own body. But the brave boy held on to life. He didn't want to die. Glenn made up his mind that he would survive. So the doctors have given up hope, but the little boy has not. He heard that people want him to die so that he does not have to live a life of dependence. However, the boy is stronger than anyone would have thought. He wants to live, he doesn't want to die, and he made up his mind that he is going to survive. He is not going to die on this hospital bed with no function of his lower half portion of the body. And somehow, to the amazement of the physician, he did survive. Why is the physician amazed that the boy lived? Because as a doctor, he would like to believe in medical science. And looking at his condition, he was pretty sure that somebody with such major burn issues wouldn't be able to wake up on his own. But the boy has got some serious determination and willpower. He told himself he's going to live, and he showed others by surviving. Yet, when the mortal danger was past, he again heard the doctor and his mother speaking quietly. The mother was told that since the fire had destroyed so much flesh in the lower part of his body, it would almost be better if he had died. Since he was doomed to be a cripple throughout his life with no use at all of his lower limbs, his mother refused to let the doctors amputate. Now, after becoming conscious, after surviving, getting out of mortal danger, what is the meaning of mortal? Something that is bound to end, something that is going to die because it has life. And mortal danger means a danger that is life threatening. So this boy was out of danger now, but still he heard the doctor tell his mother that it would have been better if the boy died. The concern here is again same, that now that he is alive, his lower part of the body is dysfunctional now because the flesh has completely burnt in the flames. It got caught in the flames and his lower half of the body is completely destroyed. So even though he has survived, he is going to live a life of a cripple, a person who cannot have function of his own body. Now, the mother here would not let the doctors amputate. Amputate means to cut or remove. So perhaps what she is talking about, the doctors maybe thought that removing the limbs which are now dysfunctional would be a good idea, but the mother did not want that. She wanted them to leave his legs even though they were not functioning. Once more Glenn strengthened his resolve. He would not be a cripple confined to a wheelchair. He would walk. But unfortunately, he had no motor ability from the waist down. His thin, scarred legs just dangled there, all but lifeless. So when Glenn heard these things from the doctor, he was determined that I am going to walk. How is he going to work? He doesn't know it yet, but yes, he has decided he's not going to be a cripple and sit on the wheelchair throughout his life. He is going to make sure that he walks. But unfortunately, because of this fire accident, his limbs were lifeless. Children, you all have studied science. You know cell is the smallest unit of life, because in our human body we have organ system, organs which are made up of tissues, then tissues are made up of cells. So if these cells and tissues are damaged, if they are burnt, if they're charred, what will happen? They lose life. So they're not getting the right amount of oxygen in that area. How are they going to function? They're not, there's no life in those cells, in those tissues, in those organs. Hence, his lifeless legs are just dangling. Dangling means hanging there from the wheelchair. He cannot move it on his own, nor can the leg feel anything. So it is just dangling over there. Eventually, Glenn was released from the hospital. Every day afterwards, his mother and father would massage his little legs, but there was no feeling, no control, nothing. Yet his determination that he would walk was as strong as ever. We see here, children, that the parents have hope. Why are they massaging his legs which are lifeless, which are scarred by the burn? What? do you think is the reason? Yes, they have not lost hope. In fact, they think that if they keep massaging the leg, maybe some blood vessels will wake up, maybe the cells will get oxygen and they will start becoming active. Maybe his legs will come back to life once again. However, there was no feeling, no control, and yet even the boy is as determined as ever. He is not going to give up his hope of walking. When he wasn't in bed, he was confined to a wheelchair. One sunny day, his mother wheeled him out into the yard to get some fresh air. This day, instead of sitting here, he threw himself from the chair. Glenn pulled himself across the grass, dragging his legs behind him. So when he was not lying on the bed, he would sit on the wheelchair. And one day his mother wheeled his chair, means took him on the wheelchair outside to get some fresh air. They had a yard. Yard is a, you can say, a garden space around the house which has grasses and mostly a fence around it to protect the yard. So he was taken into the yard to get some fresh air. And instead of sitting on the wheelchair, what did he do? This boy Glenn, he threw himself from the chair on the grass and then he started dragging himself across the grass, with his legs being pulled behind him, as the picture given in your book. He worked his way to the white picket fence bordering the yard. With great effort, he raised himself up on the fence. So now what he has done, he dragged himself all the way across the yard and went to the fence. Then holding the fence, he tried to raise himself up. After doing that, then stake by stake, he began dragging himself along the fence, determined that he would walk. He started to do this every day until he wore a smooth path all around the yard beside the fence. There was nothing he wanted more than to develop life in those legs. So as you see, the fence, they have stakes of wood. So first he used that fence to get up. Then he stake by step, by holding one stake, then moving on to the other, he dragged himself along the fence. And he dragged himself for so long that, and for so many number of times, every time that there was a path around the fence. You know what is a path, children? Sometimes when there is a grassy area and people walk on that area again and again, a kind of trail is formed, a kind of path is formed. As I had explained to you in the previous video for the previous lesson, what is a trail, what is a path. So he practiced dragging himself around the yard with the help of a fence so much that the area around the fence had become smooth. All he wanted was to bring some life back to his lifeless legs. Ultimately, through his daily massages, his iron persistence and resolute determination, Glenn did develop the ability first to stand up, then to walk haltingly with help, then to walk by himself, and then miraculously to run. Look at the amazing part in the story. The boy who could not even stand on his own began to drag his legs on his own, and due to his hope and determination and of course the parents' support, they kept massaging his legs all the time, and anybody else would have given up, but not this boy Glenn. He kept practicing, he kept doing the same thing again and again, and one fine day he was able to walk a little. He would walk and then stop. Haltingly means he would stop in between. Then he started walking on his own, and then miraculously means as if by God's grace happened, some miracle happened, he started to run. Can you believe that? A person who lost motor ability of his legs, a person whose leg was destroyed in a major burn trauma, what happened? He started running. Glenn began to run to school. He ran for the sheer joy of running and being able to run. He ran everywhere that he could. The people in his town would often see him run by on his way to who knows where, try to catch up with him and smile. Later in college, Glenn made it to the track team where his tremendous determination paid off. He eventually received the nickname the Kansas Flyer. So this is an amazing story, children, an amazing amount of inspiration and motivation here for you. Once the boy Glenn found life in his legs and started running. He would run to school. He would run all the time because he was so happy to have achieved what he had achieved. He would run all the time, and everywhere he would run, people would see him running here and there. And sometimes they would like to run with him as well, but they wouldn't be able to catch him because he was such a good runner. And later in college, what happened? He made it to the track team. Track team means the runners, the sports people of this college. Now, his tremendous determination, as you can see, children, this boy who was completely on bed and confined to the wheelchair is now running races for his college, and he came to be known as Kansas Flyer. It was a nickname. Generally, when a person is good at something, they call him by a nickname. Like Sachin Tendulkar is called Master Blaster. Now, in February 1934, in New York City's famed Madison Square Garden, this young man who was not expected to survive, who would surely never walk, who could never hope to run, this determined young man, Dr. Glenn Cunningham, ran the mile in 4 minutes and 8 seconds, the world's fastest indoor mile. Later that same year, in a prestigious outdoor track meet, he shaved another second off his record to run the world's fastest mile of that time. So in 1934, in the city of New York, in the very famous Madison Square Garden, Glenn Cunningham ran a race. It was an inside mile race. Mile is a unit of distance. Just like kilometers, meters, it is another unit of distance. And he completed that race in 4 minutes and 8 seconds. That was a record timing for indoor mile. And later, the same year, what he did, he ran another track race, another meet, and in that he took even less time, 4 minutes and 7 seconds, 1 second less from his previous record. So he broke his own record. He ran the fastest track and he made a name of himself. So people would generally think, look at us. When we hurt ourselves, when we are even in a minor accident, what do we say? Today I had an accident, I'm not feeling good, I'm under the weather, so I'm going to rest, I'm not going to do my schoolwork, etc., etc. But look here, a young boy suffering a major accident had so much determination and willpower that he not only overcame his, you can say, his crippled state, but also overachieved something that was not expected of him. Medical science has clearly said to him, that had already said that no, his motor ability is lost. In fact, they were ready to amputate, remove his legs from his body. But his mother was not she did not lose hope, and nor did the parents nor the child lose hope. They kept massaging his leg. He kept practicing to drag himself, to walk somehow, and then he started running. And not just any kind of running. Ultimately, he became a record runner. He broke records. He even earned a title, the Kansas Flyer. So such an inspirational story in front of you children to learn something from. Now this brings us to the glossary part. Engulfed, mortal danger, doomed, resolve, confined, motor ability, picket fence. Go through these. Any discussion will be done in the online classes. This is just the reading and explanation of the lesson. In our next video, we will deal with the lesson in more detailed manner. Till then, children, thank you and take care.